David Miranda, of course, partner of Glenn Greenwald, he was caught at Heathrow Airport and questioned for 9 hours by British security officials. Now, they were using, of course, Schedule 7 under the Terrorism Act. Is David Miranda a terrorist? Of course not. Do they think he's a terrorist? Of course not. But they did it anyway, partly because they wanted to get the information that he had. He was coming over from Germany. He'd been working with Laura Poitras, who's also helping Glenn Greenwald with the story on Edward Snowden. So they thought, well, maybe he might have some information about Edward Snowden. And we in the UK apparently don't care about journalism at all, and we don't think you should have a free press. So we're just going to steal his stuff. We're going to detain him, and even though we know he's done nothing criminal, we're going to just take all of his stuff, and we're going to rifle through it, we're going to read it, and then we'll probably destroy it and not give it back to him. Okay, great, fantastic. Now, to give you a sense of how outrageous this was, people that are detained under this legislation that's supposed to do with terrorism, now 97% of them are detained for less than an hour. And in fact, only 1 in 2,000 people are detained for longer than 6 hours. Only 1 in 2,000. But he was detained for 9 hours. That's the maximum. You can't go any past that. Now, do you really think it took them 9 hours to look through his memory sticks and his laptop? Or after the first 5 minutes when they got that stuff, the rest of the 9 hours is basically a warning saying, well, if you're Glenn Greenwald's partner or you're in any way involved in journalism, we're coming for you. Well, yesterday Glenn Greenwald said, you're not the only one that could go on the offense. We have more material about the UK and we're not afraid to publish it, and you have that to look forward to. Now today, David Miranda goes on the offense and says, well, I got a warning for you. I'm also coming for you. I'm going to take legal action against the British government for abusing this law and targeting me as if I'm some sort of criminal, when at most what you have on me is I might be involved in journalism. Wow. So is he right about this? Of course he is. And right now there's a little bit of controversy brewing in the UK about what they did and whether they were justified. So the British officials are going to respond. So what do they say? They say, first of all, what they did was, quote, legally and procedurally sound. Okay, well, that ought to settle it then. I love how they don't give any details. You know, they're like, no, it's all okay. I do declare, you know, it's all sound and everything's all right. Look away. Okay, all right, well, give me something. Okay, fine. Here we go. They say the government and the police have a duty to protect the public and our national security. Oh, I see. Well, in case any journalism was going to break out, I do understand how the UK has to protect their community from actually finding out what their government does. Because the government must be protected at all costs, even if it's from its own people, right? And certainly from reporters or even partners or loved ones of reporters. Well, so now wait a minute. What, even if you're against the journalism and you say, I don't want them to print that material that Edward Snowden has about the US or the UK, and by the way, nice little lapdog you are, UK. Good boy, sit, roll over, okay? The US apparently tells the UK to do whatever the hell they want, and the British government just goes along, okay? I'm sure the British citizens are thrilled about that. So, but what in the world does this have to do with terrorism, which is the piece of legislation you're using to justify? Well, they explain that Miranda was suspected of possessing highly sensitive stolen information that would help terrorism. Come on. Do you really believe he was going to go give it to the terrorists? Unless, of course, you consider The Guardian or Glenn Greenwald a terrorist, which you might, because you're now the bad guys. I mean, do you remember how it was when we had communism, when we had the Soviet Union and East Germany and obviously the heart of the Soviet Union itself and the oppression, and everybody would be worried? I mean, in Cuba, they can't even say Castro. They got to go like this for the bearded man, right? Is that how we're going to be now? We can't carry any information on any of our laptops. The government can just snatch it. So we just have to speak in code like, okay, I'm going to visit that guy. This is Edward Snowden, and I'm going to get this information. Because if we dare to report what the government does, we're all terrorists. We're giving the information to terrorists. And remember, that's exactly the argument that the US government used in prosecuting and persecuting Bradley Manning. They said, well, if he released the information to the internet, well, it could go to the terrorists. The internet is the enemy. the public is the enemy. If they get it, then he is aiding the enemy. And now the UK taking it one step further, saying, if you release any information we don't like and you embarrass the British government, we will now consider you a terrorist. Thank you. At least we now know where you stand.